How's it going, my fellow Kryptonians? I am absolutely delighted to bring you another breakdown, recap, and review of Superman and Lois episode 11, titled A Brief Reminiscence in Between Cataclysmic Events. Now, this was truly a love letter to Superman fans because we got some scenes that were borrowed from I believe the pilot episode where that montaged how Clark and Lois first met, so the proposal, the first time he levitated in front of Lois and stuff, but in a lot more in-depth flashbacks this episode. Also, as I kind of thought, Zeta-Rho's Fortress of Solitude, or should I say Tal-Rho and Zeta-Rho, was featured in there, so I'm glad that I called that at the end of last episode, even though it was kind of obvious. A whole bunch of stuff in this episode, a whole bunch of little Easter eggs as well. We had the Action Comics #1 suit come back again, but quite a few more Easter eggs beyond that. So we're going to get into this as always, guys. Very quickly though, I do want to say to any Flash fans wondering about my reviews, I didn't review last week's episode because I was kind of skipping it and waiting for the Godspeed thing to start because it wasn't that much of a great episode. And this week, well, the Flash wasn't even in it, and yeah, this episode was... So you kind of get where I'm going with this. I'm probably going to skip this week's Flash again because I said I was going to probably break them down on Thursday, so that's tomorrow from when this video goes live. But I don't think I will. I think I'm going to wait till the next week's episode, so next week's, for Godspeed to get full into swing and for us to hopefully have some form of redemption on the Flash, because I think when you guys tune in to Superman and Lois after the Flash, for example, this week's episode, you can't tell me that isn't a night and day stark contrast difference. So episode 11 picks up with our young Clark. This is the same actor, I believe, who left Martha when they were sat on that bench. And I've got a few things to say about this a little bit later. The same things I kind of mentioned in that episode. Some of you may remember. They're not really criticisms, it's just more, But either way, this was really, really cool. I love this. This was a really big treat for fans. I didn't actually expect this much flashbacks in this episode. I thought it was going to go in between present day and a little bit of the past, but no, it was more or less full memory kind of flashbacks, which was woven into the current day narrative of the plot because that has something to do with Morgan Edge infiltrating Clark's mind. But either way, seeing a young Clark with the Sunstone Crystal locating the perfect spot for it to create the fortress was brilliant. We saw him throw it into the ground and it starts to hum and crackle. It was wonderful just seeing the young Clark meet Jor-El for the first time, and he says, "The day has finally come and it gives me such joy to see you here. I am Jor-El and you are my son." So yeah, I'm even getting little shivers thinking of that moment right now. It's very wholesome, and they did it very, carefully curated the episode to really give us a nice and accurate backstory to Superman. Now, of course, after this in the fortress, this is where Clark can learn away from the prying eyes of the world, and this led up to a nice little montage moment because when Jor-El was answering why Clark is so different, and we see that little montage almost, it kind of blends from the younger Clark into the present day, obviously, actor of Tyler Hoechlin being the older Clark learning to fly for the first time, and we see him ecstatically happy. I think there's nothing happier than Superman imagery like that to me, where we see Clark kind of fly for the first time, really smiling, laughing. Obviously, I'm going to make this comparison. It was very reminiscent of that flight scene in Man of Steel when we had Henry Cavill's Clark Kent smiling and laughing in a very similar way. Obviously, very similar location. It was just, once again, chills. More Superman eye candy now. Even though he thought he was ready, Jor-El wants him to go out there and just kind of learn more about the world and why he wants to be their champion. So that's when we see Clark return to the Kent farm, looking very different from the last time Martha saw him. So this is what I mean from when I spoke about this kid actor in the previous episode. So I don't have an issue with him at all. The acting's fine, everything like that. I just feel like they chose somebody too young. Maybe I was thinking when I was going through this again in today's episode, maybe it's because if they chose anyone too much older, it would be too close to somebody looking like Tyler Hoechlin, and it wouldn't explain why he looks so different from an older actor. So it's easier to cast somebody younger who has, I guess, some years to grow in their face, and you can imagine them turning out looking like Tyler Hoechlin. But I don't know. The last time Martha Kent literally saw this Clark Kent, the younger kid actor, go off into the world, literally, this is when he went off into the world, left Smallville, left education, and that's when he returned as Tyler Hoechlin. He didn't, when we last saw him go off into the world, he didn't even look old enough to leave high school. Do you know what I'm trying to say there? I'm not trying to sound harsh. I'm just saying Clark would have been educated and everything like that before he went out into the real world, yet the one who left kind of looked too young, and I felt like he kind of was still too young in this for him to return back a complete grown man. I don't know, I just feel like they should have chose somebody a little bit older. Martha asks him, is that why he came home, to be a hero? And he was just like, yeah, but not yet. There's somebody I need to see first. And this was kind of feelsy because he looks up Lana in the yearbook, and we see Tyler's Clark look over at Lana in town being romantic with Kyle, and Clark's face was pretty devastated. This was like such a Smallville throwback, but obviously at the same time, yeah, like as Martha said, like people need to move on with their lives, and you've been gone for quite some time. And of course, we got that moment when Martha kind of opens up this old trunk case, if you will, with little bits and pieces in there, and she pulls out something, and of course it is none other than the homemade Superman suit, the great homage to Action Comics #1 of the Superman suit that we saw in the pilot episode. She says something's missing, and that's the House of L symbol. And this little expanded scene from episode 1 was brilliant, because obviously we saw him save the card, the same green card that was reminiscent of that comic book cover, and he's like, yeah, thanks, my mum made it for me. But it was really nice seeing him go around Metropolis looking for Millage Avenue, and he hears those tires squealing, and we see the Clark Kent run, we see him take the glasses off and tear open the shirt, and also the moment afterwards where he just travels back to the phone box, and we see him like get changed very, very quickly, and we see those people just going mental in terms of hype, because this is the first time that Metropolis has seen a Superman. We haven't really seen a hero like this before, I believe, in this world. And obviously little Easter egg of like, I don't know, he flew like a bird or a plane or whatever, and obviously the bird plane reference right there, which led to somebody's got to hear about this in the planet, and he looks up at the Daily Planet, which starts the little journey he has in terms of getting his job there and meeting his lifelong partner, Lois Lane. So once again, extended scenes of kind of what we saw in episode 1, where he's talking to Perry White, and yeah, he doesn't really have too much qualifications beyond just the high school paper stuff. But I also really liked the eager Clark in this moment. Like, I really feel like, yeah, Tyler Hoechlin has superseded everyone's expectations, I think. I mean, I've been rooting for him since day one kind of thing, but I've seen lots of comments saying, oh god, I really like Elizabeth Tulloch's Lois Lane and Tyler Hoechlin's, whereas I didn't so much before. Just his eagerness as Clark in this episode, the little noobiness, the goofiness is really, really on point, even just in scenes in the office like this. And that's when we get that moment of where he first bumped into Lois Lane. We had the little moments of Clark rambling, once again, very, very Clark Kent, just going on and just spitting his speech out in a nervous kind of way. But once again, we can't forget that this is a very exciting time in the Daily Planet and in the city of Metropolis, because everybody is going on about this mystery miracle man, to the point of where I like how they did it this time, because it's a little bit of a spin almost. Like, Lois wasn't all that interested in this miracle man. She was more interested in some of her other reporting that's getting drowned out by everybody's fascination of the Superman. So we see that guy saying mystery man strikes again, 3rd time this month. Jimmy even got a photo, and everybody's just clapping for this guy who keeps getting these reports of Superman and good pictures for the planet. The Lois obviously being a little bit down that he's dominating the conversation. I mean, she doesn't have anything against Superman, but she's trying to really expose some other stuff that she's been reporting about for months, such as these, I want to say the group, but just because of demonetization reason, I'm going to call them fartsies. So there was this fartsy symbols popping up around Metropolis, and I trust you can all figure out what I'm on about there. And this is where we kind of got more montages of just Lois and Clark working together, and I really adored this. It was very, very Lois and Clark, just both in reporter mode. We haven't seen so much of Clark's reportery Metropolis side, because episode 1 opened up with them obviously moving to Smallville, back to the Kent farm after he lost his job and whatnot, and Lois was initially kept around, but that's when Morgan Edge came in. So this was pure Lois and Clark days, and I don't know, just the smiles, the laughs, seeing their chemistry get further built upon in different scenes of them working together, trying to crack the fartsy case, if you know what I mean. It was fantastic to see. This is what I mean by the love letter eye candy episode that this was with these flashbacks. I mean, they're evidently feeling each other's feelings in some of the scenes that we got. And that is when she is in this a little bit of a spot of trouble, and this is when Lois meets Clark, or should I say Superman, not Clark, for the first time. But let me rewind. This is another cool little Easter egg, because obviously we've got the old Superman suit, we've got a bunch of cool little old, you know, historical representation of Superman's history popping up in all kinds of ways in this episode with little Easter eggs. And this villain, this fartsy villain with the two little symbols, if you know what I mean. He's actually a callback from the past as well, known as Atom Man, who I believe first appeared in the Adventures of Superman radio show all the way back in 1945. Now, I believe the design for this Atom Man was based on the graphic novel of Superman Smashes the Klan, which is another throwback. But yeah, it was really great seeing this. But mainly, my biggest takeaway from this, beyond the little tribute to that character back then, so you know what I mean, like everything's being truthfully given to longtime Superman fans in these moments. But the one thing that I found just beautiful is the first time Lois met Clark. Now it's that little slow-mo. He comes in, takes the blast of the flames, protecting Lois, of course, and he just looks back at her and nods. And it was very slow-mo, and it wasn't cheesy at all. It was just so... to capture such magic of the characters of Lois meeting Superman for the first time. It's very... it's almost... God, could you imagine being the cameraman or director? You want that perfect thing, and I really feel like this scene, when they first lay eyes on each other, really encapsulates the magic of just those two characters meeting for the first time. I really loved it. And also in this moment, Lois tases the guy saying, "Who's the hero now?" But did this remind anybody, another Flash comment of the Flashpoint episode in season 3, I think it was, when Reverse Flash was like, "Who's the villain now, Flash?" I don't know, just when she was like, "Who's the hero now?" It was done and delivered in a very similar way to Matt Letscher's Reverse Flash. I don't know, just thought I'd check that in there. But also, this is where, and I called it, as soon as this was happening, I'm sure many of you did as well, we saw that little blurry figure on the side that Clark noticed. I knew as soon as that popped up, that must be like Morgan Edge bleeding through, and this is all some kind of memory thing, because the last time we saw Clark, he was face down in the snow at the fortress, at the entrance of the fortress. So yeah, I just felt like it wasn't a hard kind of conclusion to come to, that this was, you know, he was being monitored in these memories, and this is where it started to bleed through. Now, this was really cool. We got an interview, and Lois kind of presenting on an actual Daily Planet news show of her first interview with Superman. She was really trying to ask him questions about how long he's been on Earth and where he came from, assuming the United States, but he was just like, just don't assume that just because I'm speaking English, and he speaks another language, so technically he could come from anywhere. One comment that was popular in last week's comment section of the review was people saying, "I can't believe Lana couldn't recognize," and that's what I mentioned as well, but I did mention, obviously with Superman, it's a very big suspend your disbelief situation. Obviously, other heroes have it a bit more tasteful than others, like Batman has a cowl, so you can kind of argue that, oh, maybe you wouldn't link it to a certain character like Bruce Wayne. But with Superman, I'm sorry, but the glasses is a very outdated thing. And everyone agrees, but it's kind of like, who cares kind of thing, it's Superman. But, you know, Lois Lane being in love with Clark Kent, I can imagine the comments are going to be again this week saying, this woman is in love with this guy, and she's interviewing the other guy, Superman, even though she's already in love, as she tells her producer in that break with Clark Kent, she doesn't recognize. It's a bit of fun, really, but yeah, it does make you kind of think, man, Clark Kent probably should have had a more extravagant disguise. But, you know, who cares at the end of the day? This is one of those comic book things that you really do have to ignore. Another Easter egg, kind of like standing for truth, justice, the American way. Her producer was saying, "Superman is into you," and I found this moment very funny, very adorable as well, because I really liked Elizabeth Tulloch, just how head over heels she was for Clark, saying, "I know he's dorky, but I love him," kind of thing, and they'd been dating for a couple of months at this point, and I loved Superman's face, because when she said that I love Clark, his face was like, oh crap, he hadn't obviously heard the L word. She even says, I haven't told Clark, but it's just hilarious that he as Superman found out, also as Clark Kent, that his girlfriend is in love with him. Even though I'm sure he reciprocated the feelings, they haven't quite dropped the 3 words to each other yet. So that was quite a funny and inventive way to do it. So we had Lois meet Martha for the first time, and we had Clark reveal himself to Lois. The only thing I would say here is, so in this moment, they just showed the montage that we got in episode 1. I was hoping, just like the extended versions of the scenes that we got from episode 1, in this episode, we would also get an extended moment of Lois being told that he's Superman for the first time, but it just cut to him levitating. I'm not really complaining, because it's still a great way of showing it. They skipped to the proposal and stuff, but I was really looking forward to, like, man, they're going to show a conversation maybe, but they didn't, so I would have loved to have seen Lois's actual reaction. I know technically we saw it because that was when Clark was like levitating in midair, but it would have been really cool to see a little bit more of that. Now, that bit that when they woke up in bed, it was almost like a honeymoon kind of location, but did the bed remind anyone else of that scene where the John Henry Irons flashback with Lois when they woke up in bed. Was that like the same room? I don't know. Maybe it isn't, but it's just like similar white kind of decor and the same bed. Maybe it is. Maybe it's meant to deliberately parallel that morning of when Superman destroyed Metropolis on his Earth, which I can't wait to get to that, by the way, because it finally gives me the excuse I wanted for Superman going evil on another Earth. And then as soon as the Jor-El stuff happened, he was like, I need you to get out of here, son. Get out of here now. I knew things were getting sus, and yeah, this is further solidified the theory I was having that, yes, this is Morgan Edge, like, sifting through. By the way, the shadowy figure pops up again. Clark is very much so aware that something fishy is going on here. So it turns out that Morgan Edge has been with Superman at the fortress the entire time. And he wants to discuss now the terms of his surrender, since he kind of has a lot of leverage knowing exactly who he is, who his family is, and who the sons of Superman are. So yeah, like, this had me really giddy with happiness, because obviously we're about to get into how Superman can turn evil on the other Earth, and this is brilliant. This is really brilliant, because it sets up exactly what I was looking for. And I was just starting to think, after the kind of couple of excuses that we got, people were kind of talking to me saying, yeah, but he didn't have Lois on the other Earth. But I was still like, well, I assume he was raised by the Kents because he was still saving people. Who knows? But the fact that they gave us this, and even if the other Earth slightly mirrors this, in, let's just say, a way that maybe he was with Lana on the other Earth with children, then I can completely understand why Superman would go evil in order to kind of not let his family die at the hands of Morgan Edge and his Kryptonian allies, who want to change Earth to a new age Krypton in a very Man of Steel kind of way. Now, what I loved most about this dialogue between both characters here is it really shows you how warped Morgan Edge's mind is, but I'm also glad we got context, and you kind of have to feel a bit of empathy towards Morgan Edge because of the way he turned out, especially when we get the Zeta-Rho flashbacks of when he first found the fortress just a little bit later. But some of the words used here, where he says, and to think it was all just for a human family, human wife and twin boys, how woefully pedestrian. It's just like holier than thou kind of attitude, because it makes sense. He had that weakness eradicated from him from his father. Like, poor guy, but you can understand how he got to the point of where he is, and he was just like stumbling through your daily life like some village idiot instead of a true son of Krypton. Now, this really does give you Zod vibes from Man of Steel, and some people are knocking on it for that not being too original, and I have to give some credit to that. Like, it does seem that it isn't so original there, but what I will say is that I don't mind it still, because it is still, whilst leaning on the General Zod type attitude, the way he was talking to Clark in Man of Steel, just the holier than thou, disgusted with humanity like approach he had for Kal-El in Man of Steel, and the way he cared about these people. It is very similar, but obviously with Morgan Edge, they've kind of fleshed it out a lot more with his mission to Earth, how he's already been on Earth, how he kind of hid amongst humanity himself. I do see the similarities, but for me, I still really do like this character. I know a lot of people were hoping that it would still be human though, and that they were looking forward to a new villain that way. Each to their own, but as far as I'm seeing, I'm still really enjoying Morgan Edge's character. It is similar to what we've had before. The way I can look at it is like, you know, you get Coke, obviously Coke is Coca-Cola, but then you get Coke Cherry, and you get Coke Vanilla, and they kind of change it up a little bit. So it's, yeah, it's got a similar taste, but a little bit of spice added in there, and that's, I guess, the weird analogy I can give you. Ultimately, though, I feel like the acting here is really, really good. Once again, from Morgan Edge, there's this desperation that he really gets across very well on screen when he says things like, here I stand, brother, flesh and bone and beating heart, your true family, join me of your own free will. So I just sense that desperation. The core of this character is he went there longing for a brother his whole life. He was then rejected by Earth. That in of itself is a very Brightburn-esque story, as a lot of you were pointing out in the last week's comments. But then to capitalize on that, and to build upon that even further, he had a father, a proper dickhead father, eradicating any kindness, because that's a weakness, or anything of humanity out of him. I really like Morgan Edge. I mean, I know it's simple in a way, but it's something you can easily understand and easily resonate with the character. And I just wonder how it's going to end now. I hope it won't end with a typical, oh, death, oh, I wish I could save you, brother, kind of thing, but I'm still going to get you, Kal-El, like, and then, like, he just dies anyway, because Clark couldn't save him, and he was just got to be stubborn until the end. But maybe in his dying breaths, he said he takes it back, and there is the good part of Morgan Edge's Teasers that comes out. I think that would be way too predictable. Please don't be that kind of predictable ending for the character where he only sees the humanity that Clark likes right at his dying breath. That don't do that. surprise me. Big thing to take out of this is that is Jor-El gone forever now, because Morgan Edge crushes the little sunstone crystal, and we had Jor-El saying, "I love you, my son," and then he disappears. So for all we know, that's the last of Jor-El now, which is very, very bad if you think about it, because Clark has turned to Jor-El quite a few times this season when he needed help with Jordan. So are they going to be tackling things now without the expertise of Jor-El? But one thing I can think of what they might do instead is that they use another Kryptonian mine to put in the fortress, maybe as of the end of this season going forward. Maybe that's Clark's mother, because that is one way they can do it. Maybe it's going to be Lara who is now in the fortress, if they can somehow put that mind into the fortress, which I'm sensing there's going to be some kind of hologram there still, even if Jor-El is gone, and I'd love to know your thoughts on that. And right at the end of the episode, just sifting through some stuff at the Cushing household, Kyle has a little bit of a headache, obviously. I'm still suspicious if every human mind-infected kind of person, is every single one of them gone? Because as I mentioned at the end of last week's episode, Morgan Edge did say when Leslie Lar said, "Is it just us?" He was like, "For now," indicating that there could be more. We had the boys and Sarah just kind of reflecting over everything as well. But then we also had Jordan and Sarah, and she's like thanking the brothers so much for her knowing the truth, but it's like you still don't know the whole truth, but you're definitely going to find out sometime sooner rather than later, because now we have them connecting in the way that Jordan's always wanted. They're now kind of a pair. They're in a relationship. They kiss. I was happy to see that. I want to see Jordan happy. That's one thing. Sure, at the beginning, as a lot of people stated, you know, he came across whiny, as a lot of people were commenting, but I've really liked Jordan ever since then, and I feel like what we're going to see with him and Sarah is the reliving Smallville. He's a kid with Kryptonian powers. He's trying to keep it secret from, you know, like the Clark and Lana kind of thing. So it's going to be interesting to have that like poetic parallel from those shows of Smallville and now Superman and Lois exist in present day, even though it's not a Smallville well, it's kind of a Smallville show, but it's Superman and Lois now. So yeah, looking forward to see how that continues and how long it's going to take for his girlfriend now to actually find out about her boyfriend being half Kryptonian, half human. Uncle Morgan arrives at the Kent farm. There's some really good acting this moment when we saw Lois scream, "Leave my sons alone," because Jordan went up to heat vision Uncle Morgan, and his heat vision just blasted him back, but good effort by Jordan, because, you know, like, it's fair play. I mean, he tried. And I was very happy. Got confirmation I was right about the theory of, it was kind of obvious anyway, but at the end of last episode, obviously, Morgan Edge arrived in the desert, and that's where his fortress was, as he detailed in this moment, that Superman, he was left in his little crumpled heap in his ice castle. Peculiar place to build a fortress, because I chose the desert. But Superman just barely made it, because he was about to kill Lois in this moment, before he then went on to kill the boys. I really appreciate that effort, because he like flew in and he was just barely able to do that because he's really depleted of his radiation, celled up kind of juiced energy. And he says, "I'll do whatever you ask, just leave my family alone." And Morgan Edge says, "Pledge to me that you will submit, and I promise to let them live unharmed." And that's when he submits. I also like how Clark said, "I'm sorry, we needed more time." He was right. And he was definitely on about John Henry Irons there, and how he was right, and how the same thing was happening on this earth. Exactly. But there's still some differences. I still want to know, as I kind of speculated about earlier. One thing I want to make crystal clear is that I'm very happy that we've got this depth now, because Superman being forced to go evil at the expense of, you know, trying to protect his family is something that is fully believable. That's the only reason he agreed to go to Teasers fortress and then subject himself to the eradication of pain and any weakness that Superman had in him. And yeah, I guess a similar thing happened on the other Earth, but maybe that Superman had a family with Lana, as I kind of mentioned earlier. Even if it wasn't that, if there was anything similar like this, it's very believable. And so we got that flashback of a young Morgan Edge making his fortress. Once again, just to kind of nail it in even more, I felt sorry for the younger Morgan Edge in this moment, because after detailing the year to his father of Zeta-Rho, he said he didn't find the Eradicator just yet, but he was like, "Did I birth a fool for a son?" Easily already putting him down. Just that little comment where it's like, "Were there any other Kryptonians sent to join me?" He's just like trying to find out, am I alone? Is there anyone else here? And he's just like, there's that weakness. There it is. All we need to take out of that moment is Zeta-Rho, dick. Absolute dick. And you can see the way Morgan Edge turned out the way he is. That's when our Clark's Superman was presented in front of Zeta-Rho, and Zeta-Rho immediately recognized the House of El, the son of Jor-El, the worst of Krypton. See how he begs, his own weakness was never stamped out, and he says, "Let us begin." And so he starts to put him through that same kind of heat vision-y kind of pain, little vessel-y thing coming from the roof of his fortress. And yeah, Superman at the end of that started raising up with Red. I feel like what I'm worried about is that it might be predictable to the point of, oh, it looks like he's evil, maybe he will be evil, and has submitted after going through such torture, I guess, to eradicate pain through whatever device that was. Is it going to be like, oh, but Lois appeals to him in the final episode and Clark comes through? That's a bit wish-washy, romanticized, simple plot, if you ask me. I'm not saying that is going to happen, by the way. I'm just hoping that they deliver us something a bit better. I suppose it would still show how our Superman has the strength to like burst through and still have a love for humanity even after being subjected to the same tortures that his brother was, and his brother still just turned out bad and didn't burst through like our Clark did. I get how there is a nice message in that and it's true to the characteristics of Superman, but I still feel like it needs to go and surprise me a little bit more than that. But yeah, ultimately at the end of this episode, it's meant to be very symbolic that our Superman has turned after going through the same or similar process that his brother did from that young age, even though there was a lot more to what his brother went through being shot in the English countryside multiple times, hunted, captivity, and then he meets his father and his father rinses him. By the way though, it still remains to be seen, to be honest, that did the black-suited Superman on John Henry Irons' Earth, did he go to this fortress and against his will as well? Was he tortured? Or did he just join his brother because of Kryptonian allegiance? I still want to think that he was tortured and forced to submit to Zeta-Rho's will and Tal-Rho's will, because it's just a lot more believable. Even if it was another Earth Superman without a Lois, I still feel like that guy needs to be forced because Superman... And of course, at the end of the episode, we had Lois ring John saying, it's happening, just like you said it would, and I bet John Henry Irons' eyes are just rolling in the back of his head saying, I knew it, and it's true, he was right. So we're now going to get him back in. I knew we would get him back in. There's been set photos of him in the suit again, so obviously it's going to get physical. But other than that, guys, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I'm really looking forward to getting into the kind of end game of the season now, seeing how it pans out. Hopefully, as I've already detailed, not in a predictable way. And to give credit to Superman and Lois, I don't think they will. I think they are still going to deliver us some surprises with the resolution of, Tal-Rho and stopping him trying to crush this Earth and turning it into a new age Krypton. But what did you guys think? Is there anything that maybe I missed? Is there any theories that you have to expand upon my own theories and where you think that this could go? Now, in the promo for next week's episode, it's kind of ambiguous. They tease a few clips from what we already saw in this episode, but we see Diggle appearing in next week's episode, and Lois teasing that he still has a family to fight for, but Superman does kind of look a little bit evil. John Henry Irons says in the promo that it took him only 7 minutes to wipe out Metropolis, so they really need to be on it on this Earth. I can't wait, guys. But other than that, like this video if you enjoyed it. Of course, subscribe for more videos just like this. I've been uploading a lot recently, so make sure you're checking out the channel and that you haven't missed any videos. Of course, links are in the top pinned comment, which is my comment. Click on show more as well, because there's lots of links that I include in there, such as my Discord server, Patreon, Twitter, to follow me there, and other social media. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.